Captain Lila Carter had always been a get-things-done kind of leader. Her reputation was built on quick thinking, sharp decision-making, and a knack for solving problems, preferably before they even had time to escalate. But that afternoon, standing in the command center of the Resolute, humanity's most advanced warship, Lila realized she had met her match. It had started with a routine diplomatic mission. The Resolute had been sent to the planet Orthan 9, a remote colony on the edge of the Huron Expanse, to mediate a trade dispute between two influential mining guilds.
Simple neuf.
Or so Lila thought. "Captain, you'd better see this," Lieutenant Jai Park called from across the room. Lila was seated at the command console, reviewing the planetary data. Her first instinct was to dismiss Jai's tone. He was known for his overly dramatic flair. "Park, we're not going to make a scene just because someone can't agree on a mine shaft," Lila said, still focused on the diplomatic reports. "Just make sure they don't start a brawl, and we'll be fine." Jai's eyes were wide, his face pale as he gestured for her to come over. "It's not the guilds, Captain. Look at this." Lila stood, walking briskly over to the display. Her sharp eyes caught the faint flickering of several incoming transmission signals, a pattern that wasn't typical for such a remote system. She adjusted the interface and saw the data. An encrypted message originating from an unknown source. Her instincts flared. "Is this a trap?" she asked, though her voice was steady. Jai hesitated, then nodded. "We think so. It's not just one transmission. It's a network of messages, all encoded to look like they're coming from different factions. But the pattern's too similar. Who's behind this? Unknown. We've traced it back to a pirate faction operating out of the Expanse. But they've been quiet for years. No one's heard from them well, no one who's still alive has." Lila's brow furrowed. Pirates were bad enough, but these weren't your average space bandits. The Expanse was a vast and treacherous region of space, a lawless zone filled with rogue factions, dangerous anomalies, and forgotten colonies. And the last thing the galaxy needed was for the pirate group known as the Black Scythe to re-emerge. "Get me a direct line to High Command," Lila ordered, her voice sharp. This just went from diplomatic to critical. Jai quickly initiated the secure comms link. A few tense moments later, Admiral Merrill Stanton's stern face appeared on the screen. "Captain Carter, I assume this is not just about a minor dispute?" Stanton's voice was cold, professional, but Lila could see the concern in her eyes. "Admiral, we've intercepted multiple encrypted transmissions originating from the Black Scythe faction. It looks like they're coordinating an attack. We don't know where or when it's coming, but I'd bet anything it's happening soon." Stanton's face darkened. "How soon?" "Sooner than I'd like. We need to act now." Stanton paused, considering. "You've got full authorization, Carter. But be careful. The Black Scythe aren't just pirates, they're a well-coordinated force with access to some very dangerous technology. This could be much bigger than what we're seeing on the surface." Lila nodded, already processing the information. "Understood. I'll need full tactical support. I'm going to take the Resolute to Orthan 9's moon, a secure position, and start tracking the signal. They can't be far. Keep me updated, Captain. I trust you'll handle it." The transmission cut out, leaving Lila alone with her thoughts. She turned to Jai. "Get the crew ready for evasive maneuvers. We'll need to be prepared for anything." Jai's fingers flew over his console. "Already on it, Captain. But we need to move fast. The pirates could already be staging a direct assault." "Then we make sure they don't get close," Lila muttered under her breath, her mind already working through the logistics. "Prepare for full combat readiness. We're not going to sit and wait for them to make the first move. We're going to find them first." The Resolute was a battle-ready ship, one of the finest humanity had to offer. Lila had been a captain long enough to know how to maintain her composure in the face of danger. But this was different. The Black Scythe was not just a criminal faction. They were a force that had crippled entire fleets in the past, using guerrilla tactics and stealth technology to disarm and destabilize entire star systems. Lila couldn't afford to underestimate them. "Captain, we've got a solid lock on the enemy transmissions," Jai called out a few hours later. The Resolute had entered orbit around Orthon 9's moon, a natural satellite with a perfect vantage point for monitoring incoming ships. They were safe for now, but it wouldn't last long. Lila glanced at the sensor display, where a red dot blinked menacingly. "Is that the source?" "Yes, but it's not just one ship. We've tracked multiple craft emerging from behind the asteroid field in the expanse. It looks like they're staging an attack from a hidden base." Lila's mind raced as she calculated their next move. The pirates were known for using the expanse's terrain to their advantage, hiding their ships in asteroid belts, using the dense debris to avoid detection. But this time, they had given themselves away. The message was clear. They wanted attention. "Can we get a visual?" Lila asked. Jai nodded, his fingers a blur on the console. The main screen flickered to life, showing a blurry image of the expanse. Faint traces of movement appeared. There, nestled between two large asteroids, was a massive vessel, dark and angular, a fitting signature for the Black Scythe. The ship was enormous, capable of launching smaller vessels or staging planetary assaults. Lila's gut twisted. The Black Scythe had re-emerged, and they weren't here for a negotiation. They were here for something much worse. "Captain," Kara's voice came through from the weapons station. "I'm reading heavy weaponry signatures from the incoming ships. They're prepared for a full assault. We're outnumbered, but we've got the advantage of surprise. Should we engage?" Lila gripped the edge of her console, the weight of the decision settling over her. There was no turning back now. This was the moment where humanity would either show its strength or fall. "Engage them," she said, her voice unwavering. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers, and get those weapons ready. This is where we show them what happens when you push humanity too far." The battle was swift, and it was brutal. The Black Scythe ships were smaller and more agile than the Resolute, but they were not prepared for the raw firepower that humanity's finest could bring. Lila's team engaged with precision, using the terrain of the asteroid field to their advantage. The Resolute's weapons, massive railguns and plasma-tipped missiles, sliced through the pirates' defenses. But as Lila's ship moved in to finish the strike, a shocking transmission appeared on her screen. It was a message from the Black Scythe leader, his voice dripping with mockery. "Captain Carter, you've proven yourself competent, but you're too late. The galaxy is already ours." Lila felt her jaw tighten. The pirate leader's words had a ring of truth to them. The battle had been won for now, but what the pirates had planned was much bigger than just this skirmish. This was a declaration of war, a war that would tear apart the galaxy. The Resolute's engines hummed with the weight of the aftermath. The sudden silence aboard the ship was deafening. Lila stood on the bridge, staring out at the debris field, where the wreckage of Black Scythe ships drifted like broken toys. They had won the battle, but the taste of victory was bitter. The pirate fleet had been destroyed, but their leader's words rang in Lila's ears like a warning. "The galaxy is already ours." She couldn't shake the feeling that they had just scratched the surface of a much larger conflict. The Black Scythe had re-emerged, but this was no random raid. This had been a statement, an invitation for something much worse. "Captain, we've secured the prisoners," Jai Park reported from his console, his voice laced with unease. He had a good reason to feel that way. They hadn't just taken down the pirates, they had just faced down one of the most notorious criminal factions in the galaxy, and now they were questioning everything they thought they knew about this conflict. "Send them to the brig. Let's find out what we're really dealing with," Lila replied, her tone even. She turned to Kara, her weapons officer, standing at the tactical console. "What's the status of the ship?" Lila asked, her eyes scanning the data on the screen. There was still a flicker of concern on her face. The Resolute is intact, Captain. We've sustained minor damage to the hull, but nothing critical, Kara said, glancing at the diagnostic panels. Our shields took a hit, but they're holding. It'll be fine. Fine isn't good enough, Kara. This is just the beginning. I'm not sure if we've seen the worst of it yet. Kara shot her a glance. You think the Black Scythe is just one faction in a larger plan? Lila nodded. The galaxy's response to this attack is going to be critical. We can't afford to wait for another surprise assault. We need to move faster, anticipate their next move. Jai walked over to join them, his expression solemn. Captain, I've been analyzing the encrypted messages we intercepted earlier. There's a pattern I'm seeing, a network of communications that seem to involve other factions. The Black Scythe weren't acting alone. What does that mean? Lila asked, turning toward him. Jai hesitated, then continued. There's a coalition forming. Pirates, rogue military factions, and groups that have been dormant for years. They're all aligning. What we've seen here isn't a random attack. It's part of a much larger movement. They're preparing for something big. Lila's pulse quickened. She had feared as much. The pirates weren't just testing the waters. They were laying the groundwork for a galaxy-wide war. Humanity wasn't just dealing with space criminals anymore. They were facing an organized force that had the power to destabilize entire systems. We need to stop them before they can mobilize, Lila said, her voice steely. Contact High Command. Let them know what we've found. Hours later, Lila stood in the briefing room, facing a holographic map of the galaxy. High Command had responded quickly, and they were already mobilizing their fleets to secure key areas. But they were slow. Too slow. Lila knew the pirates were already regrouping. The Black Scythe's attack had just been a precursor, and now their network was spreading. Jai and Kara flanked her as they went over the data. A broad swath of systems had been hit by waves of sabotage. Communications jamming, power grid failures, mining outposts suddenly under attack. The pirates had found the chinks in the armor of the galaxy's defense networks, and they were exploiting them with chilling precision. Lila's gaze sharpened as she looked at the data. One particular system caught her eye. Altair 7. It was a former mining colony, abandoned decades ago after its resources were depleted. On paper, it was a dead world, useless to anyone. But in reality, it was a perfect hiding spot. A place where a pirate group like Black Scythe could disappear without a trace. We need to move on Altair 7, Lila said, her fingers hovering over the glowing interface. It's the key to their operations. If we can take out their base, we can cripple their supply chain. This is where they're getting their strength. You think that's where they're regrouping? Kara asked, eyes narrowing. It doesn't make sense. Why would they go to such a remote place? Exactly, Lila replied. It's the perfect location to lie low, to organize. They've been building up a hidden fleet there, I can feel it. Jai ran a quick scan of the system. I'm not seeing any military presence, but the communications are scrambled. We're flying blind. It's a risky move. Lila turned toward him. Every moment we wait gives them more time to reinforce their position. We take the risk, Jai. The fate of the galaxy is at stake. The Resolute dropped out of hyperspace near the Altair system, the dim light of the dying star casting long shadows across the dark expanse. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, the crew was quiet. Every one of them knew what was at stake. This mission wasn't just about stopping the Black Scythe, it was about sending a message. Humanity wasn't weak. It wasn't just going to sit back and watch as the galaxy tore itself apart. Captain, Kara said, her voice low but urgent, I'm reading multiple unidentified ships in orbit around Altair 7. They're hiding in the asteroid belt. Lila's eyes flicked to the tactical readout. The rogue pirate fleet was more significant than she had anticipated, And they weren't hiding. This was a full-blown operation. Stealth mode. Get us in close, Lila ordered. We're not going to waste time announcing our presence. The Resolute systems flickered as the ship slid into stealth mode, its massive form blending into the surrounding shadows of the asteroid belt. Lila's team prepared for their final assault. They had the advantage of surprise, and they intended to use it to its fullest. Jai looked up from his console. Captain, I've isolated their command signal. They're not expecting an attack. This could be our one chance to take them out. Lila nodded. Then let's make sure they know who just walked through the door. They moved quickly, cutting through the asteroid field, and before long, the Resolute was in range. Lila's hand hovered over the controls, her heart beating in sync with the ticking countdown. This was it. The Black Scythe had underestimated humanity, but they were about to learn that they weren't dealing with just any species. They were dealing with a force that refused to bow down. "Ready, Captain," Kara said, her eyes locked on the enemy ships. "Fire at will," Lila commanded, her voice resolute. The Resolute's weapons roared to life, tearing through the silence of space with devastating force. The pirate ships, caught off guard and unprepared for the strength of humanity's firepower, exploded in a series of brilliant flashes. The battle had begun. The Resolute moved swiftly through the debris field as the remnants of the Black Scythe fleet slowly drifted apart in space. The battle had been brutal but effective. Humanity had proven that when pushed, they could fight back with a raw, fierce strength. The pirates hadn't expected such a force to challenge them, and now the expanse was littered with the wreckage of their ships. But victory, as Lila had learned countless times before, was always fleeting. The Black Scythe might have been temporarily crippled, but their threat remained. As the Resolute navigated through the remains of their once formidable fleet, Lila felt an uneasy weight settle over her chest. This was not just a skirmish. This was the beginning of something much bigger. "Captain, we've received an incoming transmission," Jai Park called from his console, his voice tense. "It's from High Command." Lila turned to face him, the weight of the last few hours pressing on her shoulders. "Put it through." A familiar face appeared on the screen. Admiral Stanton, her eyes hard and focused, the weight of 1,000 decisions carried in her voice. "Captain Carter, I'm impressed. You've dealt with the Black Scythe effectively, but we have bigger problems." Lila didn't need to ask what those problems were. She could see it in the Admiral's eyes. The pirates were just the beginning. There was something far larger on the horizon, something that could destabilize everything. "What's going on, Admiral?" Lila asked, her voice steady but filled with concern. "There's been a coordinated series of attacks across multiple sectors," Stanton replied. "The Black Scythe isn't working alone. We're seeing a rise in pirate activity, rogue military factions, and insurgent groups all aligning themselves with the Scythe's cause. We believe they're working toward a larger objective, a coalition to overthrow the United Systems. This could be the beginning of a galaxy-wide insurrection." Lila's heart skipped a beat. An insurgency, stretching across entire systems? The very thought of it sent a shiver down her spine. "Then we're facing a war," Lila said, her voice quieter now, but with a dangerous edge. "And if they're organizing this well, it's only a matter of time before they strike." "We need to act quickly," Admiral Stanton said. "I'm sending you coordinates for a rendezvous with reinforcements. But you'll need to act fast. The Black Scythe is part of something larger, and we need to ensure the rest of the galaxy understands that. The time for diplomacy is over." Lila's mind was already racing, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. They had been right all along. The pirates were only a small part of a much larger movement. A movement that threatened to tear apart everything humanity had worked to build. "Understood, Admiral." "I'll move out immediately," Lila said, her voice a firm declaration. She turned back to her crew. "Jai, prepare a course for the rendezvous point. Kara, get the weapons online. We're going to need them." The Resolute sped through the void of space, heading toward the rendezvous coordinates provided by High Command. As they moved through the stars, Lila's mind never stopped working. The battle they had just fought felt like a small victory in the face of something far more dangerous. The pirates might have been taken out, but the war was only just beginning. There was no time for celebration, no time for hesitation. Every moment counted. "We're approaching the rendezvous point, Captain," Kara called from the tactical console, reading multiple unidentified ships in the vicinity. "Looks like High Command isn't alone." "Keep your eyes open," Lila said, her voice steady but sharp. "We don't know what to expect here. Prepare for a quick strike if necessary." Jai's voice cut through. "Captain, I'm receiving encrypted signals from the incoming fleet. They've identified themselves as part of the United Systems Task Force. We're clear to proceed." Lila nodded, her shoulders relaxing ever so slightly. The mission had just gotten more complicated, but at least they weren't flying blind anymore. The reinforcements had arrived, and now they had to decide how to move forward with the information they had. Every move they made had to be calculated, every decision had to be precise. As the Resolute closed in on the rendezvous point, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. This wasn't just a meeting of fleets. This was a critical turning point. "Captain, we've got a direct message coming through," Jai reported, his voice tense once again. "It's from Admiral Stanton. She wants to speak with you." Lila straightened. "Put it through." The hologram flickered to life, and Admiral Stanton's stern face appeared once again. "Captain, I'm giving you command of the fleet." Lila blinked, a surge of disbelief flooding her chest. "What? You're giving me command of the fleet?" Stanton nodded gravely. "Yes, Captain. High Command has decided you're the best option to lead the defense of the Expanse. The situation has escalated faster than we anticipated. You'll have to make decisions that no one else can. This is your command now."
Lilas mintrele.
This was not a promotion she had sought. She hadn't even considered the possibility of leading the entire fleet. But the gravity of Stanton's words hit home. This wasn't about politics. This was about survival. "I won't let you down, Admiral," Lila said, her voice low and filled with resolve. "Good," Stanton replied, her tone sharp. "You'll have my full support, Captain. But remember this, time is not on our side. They're planning something big, and if we don't move now, the entire galaxy could be at risk." The transmission ended abruptly, and Lila stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. Her crew was watching her, waiting for her next move. There was no more room for doubt. "All right, everyone," Lila said, taking a deep breath. "We've got a war to fight, and we're going to do it on our terms. Kara, send the fleet's coordinates to High Command. Jai, prep the Resolute for full combat readiness. We need to move fast." As the Resolute took the lead, flanked by a fleet of allied ships, Lila's mind never stopped racing. There was a plan to be made, alliances to solidify, and enemy movements to anticipate. The enemy wasn't just Black Scythe anymore. It was a coalition of rogue factions, all aligned with one goal: the destruction of humanity's place in the galaxy. And that was something Lila couldn't allow. The galaxy might think they could wipe humanity off the map, but Lila knew one thing for sure. They had underestimated the strength of the human spirit. Humanity wouldn't break. Not today, not tomorrow, and not ever. "Captain," Jai called from his station, breaking her from her thoughts. "I'm picking up a massive fleet ahead. It's the Coalition. They've mobilized faster than we expected." Lila's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The confrontation was here. "Full speed ahead," she ordered, her voice steady. "We're going to show them that when humanity says, 'Fine, I'll handle it,' the galaxy locks down." The Resolute cut through space with the force of a battle-hardened titan, its engines roaring as it led the charge toward the heart of the Coalition fleet. The enemy, A mass of ships gathered under the banner of rogue factions loomed ahead like a storm on the horizon. Lila Carter stood on the bridge, her hand clenched tightly around the armrest of her captain's chair. The fleet had mobilized quickly, faster than anyone had expected, and now the galaxy's future was hanging in the balance. This wasn't just a fight for control of a system. This was a battle for humanity's survival. "Captain," Kara's voice broke through the tension. "I'm reading multiple signatures from their fleet. We're outnumbered 3-1. Lila's jaw tightened. This was the moment they had prepared for, the moment she had known was coming. Outnumbered doesn't mean outgunned. We have the advantage of strategy, Kara. Use it. Jai Park, standing at his console, glanced over at her. We're seeing heavy enemy firepower, Captain. They're planning to overwhelm us from the start. Lila's eyes were sharp as she looked out the forward viewport, taking in the sight of the approaching enemy fleet. It was larger than anything she'd ever encountered, and for a brief moment, doubt flickered in her mind. But it was gone in an instant. She had led humanity through impossible situations before. She had no intention of letting this one be the end. "We don't run," she said firmly. "We stand our ground. Full combat readiness. Prepare to engage at maximum range." "Understood," Kara replied. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she set the weapon systems into a ready stance. Lila stood, pacing, her thoughts focused. The stakes of this battle were higher than anything she'd ever faced. The coalition fleet had come together under one singular purpose: to bring humanity to its knees. But Lila knew something they didn't. Humanity had always survived because they were willing to fight back. And now, humanity would show the galaxy just how far they would go to protect their home and their future. "Captain," Jai said again, his voice breaking the silence, "they're closing in fast. The first wave of firepower is incoming." The Resolute shuddered under the assault as the first salvo of enemy plasma fire hit its shields. The force of the impact rattled the entire ship, and the lights flickered momentarily. Lila's heart raced, but her focus remained razor-sharp. She gripped the edge of her chair and took a deep breath. "Shields holding," Kara called out, though the strain in her voice was clear. "But they're pushing hard. We need to hit them back, Captain. We can't let them take the first strike." Lila nodded. "Fire everything we've got. Hit their front lines hard. Aim for their command ship. We need to break their leadership before they can form up their full assault." The Resolute's weapons came to life, unleashing a barrage of railgun fire and plasma missiles that tore through the vacuum of space. The enemy ships retaliated with their own strikes, and the two fleets clashed in a violent explosion of light and energy. The Resolute rocked under the barrage, but its shields held, barely. Jai's voice came through, tense. "We've got multiple enemy vessels closing in. They're trying to surround us. Divert all power to shields," Lila ordered. "I want evasive maneuvers now. Get us out of the line of fire." As the Resolute twisted and turned, the space around it lit up with incoming fire. The enemy was relentless, their ships pouring everything they had into the battle. But Lila didn't flinch. She'd fought in worse situations, and she knew her crew was more than capable of handling this. "We're taking heavy damage," Kara called, her voice strained as she kept the weapon systems firing. "Hull integrity is at 70%. We've got to break their formation soon." Lila's eyes narrowed as she studied the enemy fleet on the tactical display. They were predictable. Too predictable. The coalition had grouped their ships into tight formations, likely to make them more effective in concentrated fire. But that same formation made them vulnerable to a well-placed strike. "Jai," Lila said, her mind working faster than the seconds ticking by. "We need to disable their flanking vessels. Hit them with a spread of long-range missiles. Target the weak points." Jai's fingers moved rapidly over the controls, sending missiles streaking toward the enemy's exposed flanks. The impact was immediate. causing a chain reaction of explosions as enemy ships broke apart. "Good hit, Jai," Lila said, her eyes scanning the battle. "Now we go for their flagship." But as they prepared to make the final push, an unexpected message appeared on Lila's comm screen. The transmission was encrypted, but the signature was unmistakable. "Captain, it's from the Black Scythe," Jai reported. "The same source as before. They're trying to broker a peace deal." Lila's pulse quickened.
Peace deal.
"Now?" The screen flickered as the face of the Black Scythe's leader appeared on the display. His face was a mask of smug confidence, the dark shadows of space flickering across his features. "Captain Carter," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "You're doing well, I must say. But don't think for a second that this war is yours to win. You can keep fighting, but it won't matter. In the end, the galaxy will bow to us, and humanity will fall." Lila's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the weight of his words, but she refused to show it. She knew exactly what this was, another attempt to undermine humanity, to shake their resolve. "I'm not here to negotiate," she said, her voice cold and firm. "You'll get no mercy from us. We'll fight until the last ship is standing." The Black Scythe leader chuckled darkly. "Then so be it. But remember, Carter, you only delay the inevitable. We're coming for you, and we will win." With that, the transmission cut off, leaving Lila and her crew in stunned silence. But Lila wasn't shaken. If anything, the leader's words had only hardened her resolve. "We finish this," Lila said, her voice low but filled with fury. "We'll show them exactly why humanity doesn't break. We'll show them why we are the ones who decide our fate." The battle raged on for hours, the Resolute exchanging fire with the coalition fleet, pushing them back inch by inch. Lila's strategy was working. Slowly but surely, the enemy's formations began to falter. The Resolute had been built for situations like this, its advanced weapons and defensive systems holding strong under the barrage of enemy fire. Finally, the decisive moment arrived. The Black Scythe flagship, which had been coordinating the attack, was within range. Lila knew this was their opportunity to end the battle and send a message to every faction in the galaxy. "Captain," Kara called, her voice filled with urgency. "We've got a clean shot at their flagship. Ready to fire on your mark." Lila's fingers hovered over the control console. She looked at the crew around her, their faces filled with the same resolve she felt burning in her chest. "Fire everything." The Resolute's weapons unleashed with deadly force, sending a barrage of missiles, railgun blasts, and energy pulses at the enemy flagship. It wasn't a single hit that did it, but the sheer relentless barrage that finally crippled their command ship. The flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, its broken remains drifting into space as the remaining enemy ships scattered in disarray. "We did it," Jai said, his voice filled with awe. Lila's face remained stoic. "Not yet. There's still work to do." But in that moment, something shifted. The coalition fleet, leaderless and disorganized, began to break apart, retreating from the battlefield. Humanity had not only survived, they had struck back with a fury the galaxy would never forget. As the Resolute floated in the aftermath of the battle, Lila stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. The war was far from over, but humanity had just made its mark. The galaxy had witnessed their defiance. And it would remember the day humanity said, "Fine, I'll handle it." Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were leading the charge. And no one, no faction, no enemy, would ever forget that.